Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sherry Mayberry, and I want to welcome you all to this short, quick update to learn a little bit more about GWIZ education, and hopefully we can answer some questions for you. We're going to try to go quickly, but also give you time to ask questions and let us respond to you. Beth Smith is going to do the training today. So I put her email in the little question box. It'll be showing on your screen in green. So if you have questions after this is over with, you can either send them to me, which you will get an email from me, or Beth Smith, just so you know before we get started. There's also a handout that if you can, if you've had a chance to download it. If not, we've also provided that on the web that you can get later. So anyway, with that, we're going to get started, and I'm going to turn it over to Beth.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is going to be a very fast-paced webinar. I know you all are very busy, but we felt it was really important to reach out to you as quality specialists about the many different free training opportunities we offer providers at GWIZ. As part of our mission to support family child care, we obviously create our curriculum, and if you're not familiar with it, that's a whole other webinar you can watch. But what I want to highlight today is all the different training that we do that is not necessarily based on our curriculum, but based on topics that we will explore in just a second. So first and foremost, for those of you who are not familiar with GWIZ, I'm sitting on our website, which is simply gwizeducation.com. We have numerous free resources for providers in addition to our training. So if you haven't been to our website and you're not familiar with what we do, please take a few minutes to just explore, and you are welcome to download and share these materials with providers. We do everything digitally, from our curriculum to our resource booklets to even our recorded webinars, handouts, etc. We were way ahead of the COVID curve, so to speak, in doing these webinars because we found it was a very effective way to reach providers. So you know, we do them in the evening during the week at a time that usually works for a lot of providers, and we record them. So if they can't come live, they can come back to our website, which is where I'm going to go in a second, and they can watch the recordings. They can still do the post assessments, which enables them to print a certificate of attendance. We do this because we want GWIZ not just to be about curriculum, but to be about support in many different aspects of a provider's daily life, and training is a big part of that. So what we're going to talk about today is the different webinars that we have available on both our website, and we do have a YouTube channel as well, which is, I believe, GWIZ Education for FCC. And we basically post, when we post webinars, they go both places. But what I'm going to go to right now is under our Training and Support tab. You click on Webinar Training, and this is where we will post first and foremost, and we're just going to get ready to modify this page later today or tomorrow because we are now going to be doing a webinar next week. So that webinar that's going to be live will be at the top of this list. It will go right up here above the why behind experiences. It's going to be called What, Why, How, the Power of Open-Ended Questions. And the handout that Sherry has posted that you can download right now if you would like is about that webinar. And it is a PDF file that you can share with providers. It has a hot link to the GoToWebinar registration. It has details about what we're going to talk about. And of course, it's free. But we will post a small description of what that webinar is going to be about up top. We will put a link then, instead of saying watch, it will say register, and that's where providers can register. But what we're going to talk about right now are the ones we have recorded. The why behind experiences is one we just did fairly recently. It talks about the why behind the learning activities that providers plan for children, and how it's so important when planning activities to be cognizant of the different developmental areas that you plan to address, also the adaptations that you need to do for different developmental levels, and how you do that. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to do this for all of these webinars on this page because we just don't have time, but I'm going to use this one as an example. So with this webinar, there's a PowerPoint presentation that goes with it, and that is this right here. Now, I'm going to open the handout, which is the PDF of that presentation, but I do have the PowerPoint presentation itself, in other words, the slide deck. If you would like the slide deck to do this training with your providers yourself, I am more than happy to share that with you. Just email me, and that is why my email is in the question box, and say, hey, I would really like the PowerPoint presentation for this, this, and this. And the reason we are doing that is because in some states like Pennsylvania, Nebraska, and some other ones, I can go out there and put it in the registry where providers can get credit for attending the webinars. But in other states, we have not gone through that process, but you all have, and you're all trainers. And so if you want to use this material and train your providers using our PowerPoint presentation, that is perfectly fine. All we ask is that we obviously say it's Gee Whiz. You can say Gee Whiz created this training. But anyway, so this is the slide deck for the why behind experiences. And as you will see when you scroll through the slide deck, there's a lot of opportunities in our webinars for interaction. And so what we do is we will then say, I'll put up this slide and I will say to the providers, so, obviously this child is finger painting, and why would you plan this experience? And then we use the question box within this webinar for them to type their responses. And Sherry unmutes herself and she shares what the providers are saying. And we have found that our providers that attend our webinars love this because they learn from each other, which is wonderful. So as you go through the slide deck, you'll see there are slides where obviously I am sharing information and talking about, in this one, the why behind experiences and why it's important to know that. And then we talk about, the 10 developmental areas in this one, and then it goes through all the different areas. But again, after I go through a certain number of slides, I'm going to scroll down here if you don't mind, then we will stop and we will again ask a question where they get to share. And then we will practice what we learned. Okay, so the slide presentations that go along with the webinars that we do at GWiz are all built on this same basic premise, that it's important for providers to be engaged with one another, even if they are virtual. I mean, COVID has really changed the way not just providers learn, but everybody learns and everybody works. And so the interaction, while it can't be face to face and maybe not in the same room, is equally important. And so that's why when we build our presentations, we let plenty of time for providers to share, even if it is just typing their ideas into a box. Sometimes we have so many providers, we can't possibly read all their suggestions, but we let them know that, that ahead of time, and that we highlight as many different ones as we can. So this is just one example of a PowerPoint presentation that accompanies one of our webinars that, again, I'm willing to share with you if you would like. So what happens after, right? So we go through the webinar. Most are usually between an hour and a half. We know that it's evening. We know that they're tired. We know that they've had a long day. So we try to keep things moving. We try to keep it engaging. But after the webinar ends, if they would like to get a certificate of attendance, we don't just give that to them. Especially this is part of, also like in Pennsylvania with the PD registry, they have to prove that they didn't just attend the webinar, but they also learned something from it. And so here is a link you will see where if you click on that, it's going to take you to a Google form. We use Google Forms as a way to track who has actually attended, and well, I can see who attended versus on the GoToWebinar attendee list, but who has completed the post assessment. So what I have done is I create a Google form, which is a series of, say, 10 questions. Some might be multiple choice, some might be open short answer, some might be true false, which then dumps those responses onto a spreadsheet. And then at the very end of that, when they click submit on the Google form, a message will pop up and say, thank you so much for submitting your post assessment. Here's a link to a PDF of a certificate of attendance, which then they can copy that link and print that out. That is also something I can share with you. So let's say that you want to do the why behind experiences with your group. I can provide you with the PowerPoint. I can provide you with the certificate of attendance. I think there's a way for me to even let you know what the questions are on the post assessment. Now, I can't share the Google form because that lives on the GWiz Google I guess they call it workplace now. I don't know, they keep changing the name. But I could share the questions and you could build your own Google form if that's the way you choose to do that. So that's just one example of one of the recorded webinars that is available on our website. Now, because it's recorded, let's say your provider wants to watch it here. They could watch it just by clicking this. Then the presentation will open. They can start it, they can stop it. The reason we also post the recordings is because even people that attend live might want to go back and revisit and be able to pause and really think about what's going on, because an hour and a half is a very fast-paced webinar. So again, that is just one of the many webinars we do. So I'm going to scroll down and just show you some of the other ones that we have available. Learning about GWiz is a training for providers who have chosen GWiz as the curriculum in their programs, or it is a webinar for learning more about how the curriculum works, all the components that are included, how we do things in the curriculum, like address the 10 developmental areas, how we build an open-ended questioning. All of those things are covered in this webinar. So again, just like the one I just showed you, there is a handout of the PowerPoint presentation, which is here. We also have a handout, which is a different slide deck about all the different components that are included in the curriculum. And then again, and a link to the assessment and the certificate. So if you're not familiar with GWiz, if you have not ever really looked at the curriculum or anything about what we do, I would highly suggest you watch this yourself. It would also be very helpful for you if you have providers using the curriculum to watch this as well. Just to give you an idea of what they should be doing and how they should be utilizing the curriculum. We do have another recorded webinar, which I will show you for you yourself, a quality specialist, about best practices. We'll get to that in just a second. So that's another webinar. Another one is lesson planning for a mixed age group. This one talks about and helps providers better understand how they can, especially a family child care provider that has a mixed age group, how they can plan one experience and adapt it for different age groups and different developmental levels. Again, PowerPoint presentation. There's a lesson planning form with this one that they can use to help them practice when they're doing their own lesson plans. We even gave them a sample teaching guide of how we do things, just to give them an idea of how they can maybe get started. But again, another opportunity for something that's really important for family child care is working with a mixed age group and lesson and planning for that mixed age group. Making math meaningful is all about how math can and should be a part of everyday experiences. It should not be about rote memory or worksheets. It should be integrated into the things you do every day. And so that's what this presentation is about. Again, you're going to see the PowerPoint presentation, the assessment, and the certificate. All About GWiz is just a different twist on learning about GWiz. Similar, but slightly different in terms of what we cover and the different aspects of the curriculum we look at. This is actually an older one, an introduction to GWiz. Connecting the dots is really a powerful presentation for those providers utilizing the curriculum. We added a component to the curriculum called Connecting the Dots. This component is a document that every month connects the learning experiences we do and the skills all together with their formal assessment tool. So it's kind of hard to explain without actually going into the presentation, but if you're curious as to what this is and how this works, this would be a great one for you to watch. But again, if you have providers who are utilizing GWiz and they're having issues or they need help connecting the skills that we cover and the different experiences to their formal assessment, this is the webinar that they will want to watch, and you will want to have them watch because it goes through it in great detail. Exploring diversity is exactly what it sounds like. It's talking about the importance of diversity and celebrating diversity, which in today's world is more important than ever. And then this one is the one we're going to repeat, actually, starting next Thursday at 7 p.m. We are going to do this webinar, and that's what the handout is about. What, why, how, the power of open-ended questions. This is a wonderful webinar because it helps providers better understand what an open-ended question is and why it's so important to ask open-ended questions. I've found in doing this webinar that a lot of times providers aren't quite sure, they don't really grasp what an open-ended question is, and then once this webinar, the light bulb goes on, they're like, oh my goodness, I get it. And again, we do a lot of practice within the webinar itself. And then the final one is no money, no problem. This is all about using household materials for as teaching tools. So for instance, a clothes basket, a cardboard box, a rolling pin, a ladle, things that providers should have around the house and using them as teaching tools for learning experiences. This is a fun one, and again, one that providers really, really enjoy because it helps them see how they don't have to go out and spend a lot of money to buy materials. They have things in their own home that will help them create amazing learning experiences without spending a dime. And so that's another one that providers really like. So as we do new webinars, we're going to be adding to this list. This is like our library. And again, all of these live on YouTube as well. I'm going to pause for just a second to see if anybody has any questions about the different webinars that we currently have on our website, or any of the topics that we've covered. Any questions whatsoever before I move on?
If you have a question, you can type it in that the little box that says question. It's a gray line, and then I put Beth's email in there so you can jot that down too. The one question that came up is, I would like to get a copy of that PowerPoint, and we've got that. If you type that in, we'll have it, and we can identify you after the webinar and get it to you.
Yes, again, if you want a PowerPoint presentation for any of those webinars, once you've had time to explore them, email me at bsmith@gwizeducation.com and just tell me which PowerPoint you are looking for. Say, I would like the PowerPoint for the why behind experiences, or I would like the PowerPoint for learning about GWiz. Whatever it is you want the PowerPoint for, let me know and I'll send that to you.
And I don't see any questions, but if they come up while we move forward, just type them in, and I'll get Beth to stop and we'll answer them for you.
Okay, great. Before I move on to some of the resources that we also have available that you're welcome to share with providers, I do want to note under educational resources, we have a special area that's for you as a quality specialist that includes topics like learning about GWiz, supporting providers, the utilization checklist, and webinars for quality specialists. This webinar will eventually land right here and live on this section of our website. But I do want to point out we do have two of them available. And this one, the first one, is really important. It's about best practices in implementing GWiz. So if you have providers utilizing the curriculum or considering using the curriculum, this is an important one for you as a quality specialist to watch. It talks a lot about, how to know if they're using it correctly, and that's part of our utilization checklist. The other one that is down here is one we did about supporting providers and how we can provide you this goes through a lot of the free resources that we have available to all family child care providers that you are welcome to share. It's a great webinar again to watch. I'm not sure, Sherry, why that says register instead of watch, but I have a feeling it's just a typo.
That would be, yeah, that would just be a little housekeeping that I need to take care of.
So anyway, these are two webinars, like I said, that are for you as a quality specialist. And what we will do is after this one has been downloaded, then we will post it right here at the top. And that way you can come back and reference it because again, this is very fast paced, or if you want to share it with other quality specialists that were unable to attend today, you are welcome to do so. Again, the how I got to there was simply to go to educational resources and then resources for quality specialists and then webinars for quality specialists. Okay. Um, so again, there are a lot of free resources available, excuse me, under the educational resources tab that are also things you are welcome to use as training tools with providers. So for instance, the learning environment. This is the booklet that talks about the learning environment and talks about the provider's role within that environment, about why it's so important for them to be engaged with children. Even things that we sometimes need to remind ourselves to put down your phone, for instance. Um, so anyway, if you click this picture, it'll open the booklet, which is again like all of or the majority of things we do at GWiz. It is a PDF file, and you are welcome to use this as a training tool. So if you want to talk with providers about how important their role is and how important it is for them to, for instance, be positive, um, this is a document you can use as a basis for training. So if you would like to use it, you certainly can. Again, you find it under the Educational Resource tab. Under that same tab, we have another booklet which is about parental involvement, parental involvement, family engagement, and GWiz. This one even includes printable materials that they can use with their families. For instance, this one, which is just a note. This is something they could print out if they needed, say, a change of clothes or diapers or wipes, which is a way, again, a simple way to communicate with families. We also have setting family goals, a goal sheet that they can use with families. These are both available in English and Spanish, by the way. So this is again another free resource that you can use for training. You can just share with providers, whatever you want to do. The purpose of this webinar is simply to make you aware of all the different things that we have available at GWiz that you are able to share. And you will notice when I'm on the website, I am not logged in. I am not logged in as a customer. These are available to providers, quality specialists. Again, our goal as a company is to support providers and to support you as you support providers. So these resources are free and available to everyone. Um, if you are, for instance, looking for under the resources for providers, if they need developmental checklists, we have those. We have tools for health and safety and nutrition that you can share with providers, like an accident report. We know that some states require you to post a no smoking poster, so we came up with a cute one. There's a toothbrushing chart. There's a diapering display that they can put up that has all the different steps for diapering. Again, all these resources are free. Now, if you want to use our user's guide, it has numerous sections that could be utilized again as training tools for the basis of a webinar or a face-to-face training with providers that you are more than welcome to use. For instance, there's an entire section on individualization and authentic assessment. This section talks about anecdotal notes. It talks about reflections. It has printable tools like our observe and reflect grid that you can print out and providers can use to record their anecdotal notes and their reflections. It has an individualization web, so they can take that web and use it to individualize either a GWiz unit that they're doing or their own unit that they're doing. So again, there are tons of resources available within this one document that you could pull sections out from and do your own training. So again, this is found under our tab about the curriculum. Okay. And then the last place I want to highlight, just in case you have never been here, because we just redid this, is our alignment. GWiz is fully aligned with all state and national standards. So when you're talking about curriculum, we are aligned. And so what we have done is for each state, and I'm just going to pick out a random state. Let's see, I'll pick out, let's say California. If you click on California, you're going to see, and this is the same for any state, you're going to see in California we have an alignment to what's called their DRDP. We have an alignment to their infant and toddler, and we have an alignment to their preschool. And then this is a link to their state website where the standards actually live. So if you want to see how we are aligned, you can click on any of these documents. If you want to direct a provider to their state alignment or to their state standards, it's all right here in one place. We are approved in many different states, such as Illinois, Minnesota, Delaware, North Carolina, Florida, Nebraska, Pennsylvania. So anyway, that's all also, I believe, when we redid that, we put that here. Let me look at Pennsylvania, for instance. So again, you'll see our alignment, you'll see the Pennsylvania standards, alignment, and this one actually has a digital flyer that they can share. Um, so I just want to make you aware of this part of our website because that does come up quite frequently about whether or not you're aligned, and the answer to that is yes, we are fully aligned in all the different states. Um, okay, so it is 1:55. We have 5 minutes. So I would like to, at this point, open it up to any and all questions related to the training opportunities that we have at GWiz, the resources that we have, any questions about our curriculum. We've been getting tons of emails recently from quality specialists across the country regarding, it seems like there are a lot of CCR and our agencies right now working to expand their family child care providers. In other words, they're trying to bring more providers in and they have money to help bring them in. And so they're asking us about subscriptions for multiple providers and setting up cohorts. And that is something that Sherry can certainly talk to if that is something of interest to you, but we can do that. It's just it's not something that is impossible to do. We can definitely set up a situation where the agency is paying for a group of providers, and then because all of our webinars are recorded and on the website, what's happening in some states is the quality specialists that are purchasing curriculum for a cohort of new providers is then asking them as part of the deal, basically, they're saying, okay, I'm going to purchase this curriculum for you for a year, but I need you to watch 3 or 4 of the recorded webinars on the GWiz website. And they're making that kind of the I guess the requirement in order to take advantage of utilizing the curriculum. So again, I'm going to open it up to questions. Any and all questions that you have, please type them in the question box. We are happy to answer them. Again, if you have questions afterwards or you want PowerPoint presentations, you have my email. Please reach out. Um, and with that said, I'm going to be quiet for a second and see if we have any questions.
One thing I did want to point out, most of our customers are setting up their own account and it's done with a credit card and it's recurring, and they either choose monthly or quarterly or yearly. With some of the agencies, they don't want it to be recurring because it's either going to be done maybe with their credit card with the agency or maybe with a check. So that's where, if you let me know, we can help you get that into place, but that it will not be recurring, but just for the time that your agency would want to provide the program for them. Um, how much is the GWIS curriculum? That's the first question.
Okay,
Go
go ahead, Sherry. You can answer it.
Well, again, the provider themselves can choose to go monthly, which is $18.95 a month, or quarterly, $53.95 a month, or yearly, $192.95 a year. If I meant quarterly, $53.95 quarterly. If the agency decides and they want to use a credit card, but they don't want that charge to, be recurring, you just have to let me know by giving me the list, and then I can set the account so that it does not recur. It's not a recurring.
I would say the
And
majority of agencies that are setting, and Sherry, you can tell them if this is wrong, but the majority of agencies setting this up for cohorts of providers, they go yearly just because it's much easier
yes,
for them to go ahead and set it up for a year. And we can also do, if you need to do a PO, we can make that happen too. I
yeah,
mean, we work with agencies in many different ways. So Sherry is the person to reach out to if you want to do that. Um, and Sherry, they have your email, correct?
yes, yes. Well, I can type it in again, but actually all your reminders for this webinar came from me. So if you send it back to that, if you've got my email, we can work with you in any way. And every state operates a little bit different with their funding. Okay, another request for the PowerPoint. So we'll get that.
Yep, reach out to
And
me at
yeah,
bsmith GWiz Education. I'll get back with you as soon as I can.
yeah. And Debbie, I've talked with you myself. We can get that to you afterwards. She wants the PowerPoint for the what, why, and how. So we'll get that to you afterwards because these questions will show up in a report that we'll run after the webinar is over with. Again, if you've got questions after this is over with, after you think of something or you go to, a meeting and you're like, well, I'm not sure if they'll do that, um, just send it to us, and either to me or to Beth, and we'll get it to you. Anyway, it's right
I
at
do,
2 o'clock. Go ahead.
and I do have one last question. We are in the process of planning our webinars for the upcoming year. So if you have ideas of topics that you think would be very helpful for family child care providers, if you don't mind typing those in the question box, that would be awesome. Because as we plan and move ahead, it's very helpful to hear from you where you feel the need is, so then we can create PowerPoints that will address those needs and presentations and webinars. So if you have topics you think would be helpful, if you don't mind before we end the webinar, just typing them in, that would be awesome. Um, and then there will be just a few very short questions as a survey that launch immediately when we end, and your answers to that would be very helpful. We would really appreciate it.
I believe, Beth, if I'm not mistaken, one of the questions in the survey is any other webinar topics you'd like to see covered. Is
It
it not?
might be.
I'm pretty sure
I
it is.
can't
That's
remember.
okay. Either do it there or you can send us an email, or if you got time, you can type it in the question box. Either one.
Any other questions before we end? Because we're trying to keep this very short and sweet.
Individualization is a topic they would like to have
Or
on a
also
webinar.
feedback. We'll take any and all
Yeah.
feedback, good, bad, and otherwise.
Yes. Anyway, I think you guys know how to get a hold of us. Um, one of the two of us, either way. And then there's always customer service where be under training and support. You can send an email there and we'll support you that way also. But with that, I again want to thank, ooh, wait a minute. Oh, lots of topics on webinars. Okay. And thank you. Appreciate that. Um, anyway, thank you so much for coming and your responses. And no other questions. Hope you all have a great afternoon.
Thank you for
Okay.
attending. We'll post this under the quality specialist resource tab as soon as it's generated. So thanks at all. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks.